Hello, we are from Group 11. We want to present our critical book report. The member of Group 11 are Jesika Marsaulina Sesillia Pardede, and Stefani Theresia Sihole. Our book identity is about active listening. The author is Carl Rogers and Richard Ivan Larson. The publisher is Martino Publishing. Year of publication is 2015, page 40. ISBN 10 is 16142787225. ISBN 13 is 9781614278726. Summary. The meaning of active listening. There are many kinds of listening skill. The lawyer, for example, when questioning a witness, listens for contradiction, irrelevancies, error, and weaknesses. But this is not the kind of listening skill we are concerned with in this booklet. The lawyer usually is not listening in order to help the witness adjust or cooperate or produce. On the other hand, we will concern with listening skill, which will help employees gain a clearer understanding of their situation, take responsibility, and cooperate with each other. This, for example, of active listening. In that example, is using the active listening approach. He is listening and responding in a way that makes it clear that he appreciates both the meaning and the feeling behind what Kelly is saying. Active listening does not necessarily mean long sessions spent listening to be friends, personal or otherwise. It is simply a way of approaching those problems which arise out of the usual day-to-day event of any job. To be effective, active listening must be firmly grounded in the basic attitudes of the user. We cannot employ it as a technique. Technically, our fundamental attitudes are in conflict with its basic concept. If we try, our behavior will be empty and sterile, and our associates will be quick to recognize this. Until we can demonstrate a spirit which genuinely respects the potential worth of the individual, which considers his right and trusts his capacity for self-direction, we cannot begin to be effective listeners. Next will be explained by Cecil.
Active listening is an important way to bring about change in people. Despite the popular notion that listening is a passive approach, clinical and research evidence clearly show that sensitive listening is the most effective agent for individual personality change and group development. Listening brings about change in people's attitudes towards themselves and others, and also about change in their basic values and personal philosophy. People who have been listened to in this new and spatial way become more emotionally matures, more open to their experience, less defensive, more democratic, and less authoritarian. When people are listened to sensitively, they tend to listen to themselves with more care and make exactly what they're feeling and thinking. Not the least important result of listening is the change that takes place within the listener himself. Besides the fact that listening provides more information than, than, than any other activity, it builds deep, positive relationship and tends to alter constructively the attitudes of the listeners. Listening is a growth experience. These then are some of the worthwhile results we can expert from active listening. But how do we go about this kind of listening? How do we become active listener? What to avoid? One problem that listener face is that of responding to demands for discussion, judgments, and evaluation. He is constantly called upon to agree or disagree with someone or something. Yet has as he well knows the question or challenge frequently is a max expression of feeling or needs which the speaker is far more anxious to communicate than he is to have the surface questions answered. Because he cannot speak this feeling openly, um, the speaker must discuss them to himself and to others in an acceptable form. To illustrate, let us examine some typical question and the type answer that might best elicit the feeling beneath it. Employee question. Just whose responsibility is the tool room? Don't you think younger able people should be promoted before senior but less able ones? What does the super expect us to do about those broken down machines? Don't you think I have improved over the last review periods? Listener answers. Do you feel that someone is challenging your authority in there? It seemed to you that should I take it? You pretty disgusted with those machines, aren't you? Sounds as if you feel like you really pick up over these last few months. This response recognize the questions but leave the way open for the employee to say what is really bothering him. They allow the listener to participate in the problem or situations without shouldering or responsibility for these discussions, making or actions. This is process of thinking with people instead of for or about them. But not at all. Communication is verbal. The speaker's words alone don't tell us everything he's communicating, and hence truly sensitive listening requires that we become aware of several kinds of communication beside verbal. Next will be read by Jesika.
The way in which a speaker hesitates in his speech can tell us much about his feelings. So, too can the inflection of his voice. He may stress certain points loudly and dearly, and he may mumble others. We should also note such things as the person's facial expression, body posture, hand movements, eye movements, and breathing. All of these help to convey his total message. What we communicate by listening. Most people think that listening is a possible method for dealing with humans. It conveys the idea. The most important aspect of this is that is the demonstration of the message that works. Like other behavior, listening behavior is continuous. This has implications for all communication problems, whether between two people or within a large organization. Every person who feels responsibility in a situation can set the tone of the interaction, and the important lesson in this is that any behavior exhibited by one person will eventually be responded to with similar behavior. Listening is one of these constructive behaviors, but if one's attitude is to wait out the speaker rather than really listen to him, it, it will fail. The one who consistently listens with understanding, however, is the one who eventually is most likely to be listened to. Testing for understanding. It is far more difficult than it first seems. It is important to constantly test your ability to see the world in the way the speaker sees it. It will do this by reflection in your own words, what the speaker seems to mean by his words and actions. His response to this will tell you whether or not he feels understood. A good rule of thumb is to assume that one never really understands until he can communicate this understanding to the other's satisfaction. You can become involved in lively or controversial discussion with another person. Stop for a moment and suggest that you adopt this ground rule for continued discussion. Before either participant in the discussion can make a point or express an opinion of his own, he must first restart, restate aloud the previous point or position of the other person. Problem in active listening. Active listening is not an easy skill to acquire. It demands practicality. Perhaps more important, it may require a change in the basic attitudes. This change comes slowly and sometimes with consideration. The personal risk. If you want to be effective at all in active listening, one must have a sense interest in the speaker. Active listening covers as a strong element of personal risk. If we manage to accomplish what we are describing here, to to sense deeply the feelings of another person, to understand the meaning his experience have for him, to see the world as he sees it. We risk being changed ourselves. For example, we if we permit ourselves to listen our way into the psychological life of a lover, leader, or agitator to get the meaning which life has for him, we risk we risk coming to see the world as he sees it. It it is threatening to give up, even momentarily, what we believe and start thinking in someone else's terms. It takes a great deal. And next will be explained by Stefani.
Out-of-out expression. The expression dealing with behavior which is not usually acceptable in our society. At less extreme levels, we all find unnatural or inappropriate behavior difficult to handle. That is anything from an off-color story out in mixed company to seeing a man weep is likely to produce a problem situation. Any face-to-face situation. We will find instances of this type which will momentarily, if not permanently, block any communication. In business and industry, an expression of weakness or incompetency will generally be regarded as unacceptable and therefore will block good way communication. Accepting positive feelings. The feelings or express The feelings or expression are much easier to deal with in any face-to-face relationship than are true and deeply positive feelings. This is especially true for the businessman because the culture expects him to be independent, bold, clever, and aggressive and manifest. Emotional danger signal. Emotions are really important when we listen something. When emotions are at their height, when listening is more necessary, it is most difficult to set aside one's own concern and be understanding. Our emotions are often our own worst enemies when we try to become listener. The more involved and invested we are in a particular situation or problem, the less we are likely to be willing or able to listen to the feeling and attitude of others. That is, the more we find it to respond to our own needs, the less we are able to respond to the needs of another. Defensiveness. The points about which one is most vocal and dogmatic. The points which one is most anxious to impose on others. These are always the points on these are always the point one is trying to talk oneself into believing. Resentment of opposition. It is always easier to listen to an idea which is similar to one of your own than to an opposing view. Class of personalities. This experience has consistently shown us that the genuine expression of feelings on the part of the listener will be more helpful in developing a sound relationship than the suppression of them. Listening to ourselves. When we are most aroused, excited, and demanding, we are least able to understand our own feelings and attitude. The ability to recognize and understand the meaning which a particular episode has for you, with all the feelings which it stimulates in you, and the ability to express this meaning when you find it getting in the way of active listening, will clear the air and enable you once again to be free and to listen. It is much more helpful in developing effective relationships to avoid suppressing these feelings. Speak them out as clearly as you can and try to enlist the other person as a listener to your feeling. Active listening and company goals. Individual importance, one answer is based on an assumption that is central to the listening approach. That assumption is the kind of behavior which help the individual will eventually be the best thing that could be done for the group. Or saying it another way, the things that are best for the individual are best for the company. We are not all sure in just what ways the group does benefit from a constant demonstrate for an individual, but we have several strong leads. One is that the group feels more secure when an individual member is being listened to and provided for with consent and sensitivity. And we assume that a secure group will ultimately be a better group. Next will be explained by Cecilia.
Listening and production. There are some who frankly hold that there is no relationship to be expected between moral and production. The production often depends upon the social mystic, the eccentric, or the isolate. People are more effectively motivated when they are given some degree of freedom in the way in which they do their work than when every action is prescribed in advance. They do better when some degree of discussion making about their jobs is possible than when all discussions are made for them. Maximum creativeness. The maximum productive capacity of people and that output which industry is now releasing is immense. We simply suggest that there is maximum capacity might be closer to relations. If we sought to release the motivations that already exist within people rather than try to stimulate them externally. This, this wrestling of that individual is made possible first of all by sensitive listening with respect and understanding. Listening is a beginning toward making contributions when an individual feels himself worthy of making contribution, and this could result in very dynamic and productive organizations. The conclusion. Active listening has changed your ability to absorb and pass on the data and information given during the exchange. By developing your skills and techniques to actively listen to your communications, will offer your listeners greater clarity and empathy. An essential aspect of active listening is your ability to block out any distraction that may be present where you are communicating. If your natural tendency is to rush into a response, practice taking a breath before you talk so that the other person has the opportunity to finish what they're saying. If you don't do this and you cut off the person respond before they have explained their whole viewpoint, you will not have a complete pictures. A deceptively simple concept called active listening can really help you to improve your communication skill.
Advantages and disadvantages. Advantages. In terms from appearance, this book is designed with a very good, neat, and attractive cover, so that it becomes one of the points that people are interested in. This book does not only discuss theory in terms of language itself. This book is very easy to understand in language, so that it can add insight to the reader. Is one of the books that critics recommend as a reference when they want to find information about planning for learning English literacy, not only in terms of theory, but also in terms of its analysis. So, and then disadvantages. There are also some disadvantages of this book, one of which is that this book is classified as a complicated material preparation because the distribution of the material is not separated by chapters and numbers, but big title only and also only but big title only, and also there is no reference put on this book.
That's our presentation about our CBR. Thank you.